Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now yesterday we took a look at the GTX 1080 Ti as part of an era appropriate gaming PC. I paired it with an i7 8086K. Now in that one I said I wanted to keep the 1080 Ti to see how well it performs going forward through 2026 and beyond. So this is the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4 Beta. The minimum specs for this one are actually quite modest too, so if you don't have a super high-end PC then you'll be pleased to know that we don't need anything too intensive to actually run this, at least in beta form at the moment. Whether or not these specs will change or not, I don't know. I'm using an i5-12400F, 16 gigs of DDR4, clocked at 3000 MHz, and of course the blower style EVGA 1080 Ti. A few of you said this wasn't running quite at its best yesterday, but I've given it a good clear out, a repaste, and I've turned the fan speed up as well. So hopefully it should be sitting at a nicer temperature throughout. Enough chit chat then, let's get into the game. And to be honest, just starting this one, you've got to be some sort of computer wizard to get this running, I swear. I got this error message pop up first of all, something about attestation. Said my whole computer basically wasn't compatible for some reason. I've got secure boot enabled, TPM 2.0, but it said I needed to update my BIOS, so I don't know why this is the case. Now in order to actually resolve this, I did update my BIOS, and then I found some command line from Reddit that I had to type in to even start this title, and that is not what you want when you just want to sit down and play a fast-paced online shooter, but it's working now, and where better place to start with the 11 gig 1080 Ti than with the minimum preset. Now I chose the minimum preset here, but I kept the resolution scaling at 100% throughout. With the minimum preset it will default to 50%, but that can end up being a bit of a blurry mess. I also opted for SMAA2TX and I set the strength to 0%, so the game still looks very sharp, though you may notice a few little jagged edges. We have FSR1 as well, FSR3 if we want to, but SMAA2TX seems to be the less intensive option, especially for our 1080 Ti. So we can certainly push things higher than minimum. As you can see here, the GTX 1080 Ti is pretty much maxed out, clocking at over 1800 MHz today. It was really grateful for the repaste, I think, and we are also running with a more intensive fan curve. I actually ran 3 games across all of the different graphical presets so that we could get a better idea of the general performance, but again this may be subject to change over time and when the full game comes out as well. So as we can see, the i5-12400F sitting back relaxing at about 50% utilization, clocked at an all-core speed of 4 GHz. I actually have a liquid cooler on this, which is certainly overkill, but it's the one I pulled from the PC I tested in the previous video. So this processor is allowing the card to hit its maximum potential, and honestly the minimum preset is not going to be a problem. I stuck with preset simply because it's the easiest option. At the minimum and the what is now basic preset you're seeing on screen, the texture quality will remain at very low. I believe it's only when we turn up the preset again that textures get a little bit higher. I think it goes to low texture quality with the balanced preset, and then with the ultra preset it goes to high texture quality, and then when we turn things up to extreme we get the very high texture quality. But at the moment, yeah, we're looking at the basic gameplay here. Not much has changed visually. I think that's because the texture quality still defaults to very low, and this is reflected in the performance as well. It didn't really make much of a difference. In fact, in a couple of the maps the performance did seem a little higher, but overall we saw a couple of frames per second less. Not only that, but our percentile lows were ever so slightly affected as well. We lost a few frames with the 1 and 0.1% low, but with the basic preset, just like with minimum, we are still seeing over 100 FPS on average. Now this is my first time playing the game. The footage I've captured here, this is the first time I experienced this map, so please excuse the potentially awful gameplay. That said, I don't really have an excuse for all the times I test CS2 because I've been playing that for years and I've never got any better. But with Call of Duty I seem to actually be okay. Same as Fortnite, I can actually wipe out a few enemies and I don't place last almost every time. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind. The gameplay might not actually be that terrible after all. In terms of performance though, so far so good. Though of course it doesn't look all that great. I'm always grateful that the Call of Duty games seem to be very well optimised and run on a wide range of hardware though, because it means more people can enjoy them. Alright, so now I've turned things up to balanced here. This also increases the texture quality, not by much from what I recall, but the performance is still almost the same. We're looking at 100 FPS now, though there will be a lot more drops below this. Our average was actually 100, pretty much spot on, 99.8 as you can see on screen. Once again, our percentile lows have dropped a little bit. I'd actually say that the game remains just as smooth as it has been previously, but where we're going to notice the biggest difference is with the average frame rate. And even then, you're not really going to feel this difference when actually playing, especially as we will still see frame rates of over 100 FPS in balanced mode. We're still using SMAA2TX, of course, with 0% strength here, which seems to favour sharpness over smoother edges. From what I've experienced so far in the Modern Warfare 4 beta, I've just been running team deathmatches at this point, and I'm quite enjoying these sort of small, fast-paced maps. Not sure if there's any bigger maps, perhaps they're reserved for the different game modes, but I thought I'd just jump into a few team deathmatches here. Because it's always my favourite mode to play, and when the full game comes out we'll probably test it again on a wider range of hardware. This is sort of my first initial impressions video of the performance running on the once top tier and now legendary GTX 1080 Ti 11GB. So this is footage from the Ultra preset now, again with the same SMAA2TX option enabled. Now we've gone from 100 FPS with the balanced preset to 87 FPS overall. The texture quality has been increased as well now. This is still a pretty smooth experience. We're looking at 87 FPS overall with a 1% low of 59 and a 0.1% low of 49. The 12400F and 1080 Ti is actually a pretty solid pairing. The card is now holding very steady at 1823 MHz maximum. Remember, this is a blower style card, so it may not hit the clock speeds that better variants of the 1080 Ti will, but these blower style cards are often cheaper than their dual or triple fan counterparts. So if you want a 1080 Ti in 2026, which isn't all that recommendable, I have to say, you will experience a few driver warnings, and we aren't getting game ready driver updates anymore, but as you can see here, it is still a capable card that is able to run the latest titles out there, albeit with the occasional compromise, and this is something we looked at in the previous video too. We can see the VRAM usage now is encroaching on about 8.5 gigabytes, and when it comes to actual usage we're looking at 7.2. So I'd be sweating a little bit if this was an 8 gigabyte card, but because we have 11 gigs to play with here, I think we have a little more headroom in terms of improved frame rates. And the 11 gigs is probably helping with consistency too. What we'll do now then is finalise with the Extreme preset. Again, this is at native resolution with SMAA2TX. We haven't enabled any upscaling here. So the differences between the Extreme and Ultra preset are noticeable visually, and the performance differences are also noticeable here. We've dropped about 10 frames per second. We were at 87 before, and now we're looking at 76. So still above 60 frames per second, which is always good. The percentile lows were still fairly respectable, 56 down from 59 and 41 for that 0.1% low, down from 49 with the Ultra preset. So 1080p Extreme on 2017's GTX 1080 Ti here, and with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, the beta, it's still running pretty well. And if you have a 1080 Ti, you've owned one for a while, I think you're still going to be happy with some of the results that it's able to pump out. And if you've been looking forward to Modern Warfare 4, well, good news so far, it does seem to be playable, more than playable, if 60 FPS is your target on this GPU. If you're looking for 120 FPS, then the 1080 Ti is not going to deliver that at any visual setting, not without some extreme form of upscaling, but I think 60 FPS is a more sensible target to have in mind these days. Now I don't want to end the video without at least talking about the upscaling options. For example, if we enable FSR3 balanced, this is going to boost our average up to 84 FPS, but the game does look noticeably worse. It's certainly not as sharp as it was before, and to be honest, I'd rather play on the extreme preset with SMAA enabled and about 75 to 80 FPS most of the time. In fact, I'd probably stick with the balanced preset for 100 FPS because that guarantees at least 60 FPS in terms of that 1% low as well. But if you do want to enable or play around with a couple of the upscaling options, then FSR3 is probably going to look the best, though it will take more of a toll on the 1080 Ti. It's quite a demanding option to enable on this aging graphics card. I wouldn't recommend enabling FSR3 at native resolution because that is going to eat into performance. So if you want to play on extreme on a 1080 Ti, it's either with SMAA2TX enabled or FSR3 balanced enabled, though I prefer the sharpness of SMAA2TX. Like I said, I'd avoid the extreme preset altogether and just play with balanced or perhaps ultra. But there we go, this has been the Modern Warfare 4 beta on the GTX 1080 Ti. This old legendary card still has what it takes to pump out some pretty respectable performance figures, and we'll be sticking with this card, keeping it for quite a while here and testing it with all the latest and greatest releases. There will of course be some limitations, for example games that require ray tracing, but we will cross those bridges when we come to them. Thanks as always for watching then. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know how the Modern Warfare 4 beta runs on your system, particularly if it's a lower end rig that you have. And as always, I hope to see all of you in the next one.